10 Foolproof Perennial Plants for the Northeast U.S. Astilbe plants have tall flower plumes and attractive lacy foliage. There are varieties that bloom from mid-spring or well into summer. Although it only blooms once, the flowers stay attractive for weeks. Even as they dry, no deadheading is required. The only required maintenance is to cut back the dead leaves in the fall or spring. Most Astilbe plants grow more vigorously if divided about every 3 years. Although rated for full sun, in the hot, dry northeast summers, it fares better when given some afternoon shade. Otherwise, it will need supplemental water. Spiked Speedwell grows into dense mounds of foliage with tall flower spikes that stand above the leaves. The plants grow to 1 to 3 feet in height. The flower stalks do need to be cut back to get a repeat bloom, but since it gradually flowers from the bottom of the spike upward, Speedwell stays in bloom for weeks at a time. Speedwell tends to self-sow, but the volunteer seedlings are easy to manage. Speedwell should be divided every 3 years or so. Coral bells are loved for their delicate coral-colored, bell-shaped flowers that wave above the foliage on long, thin stems. The plants typically grow to 12 to 18 inches in height. More recently, it has become the darlings of plant breeders who have created varieties with colorful foliage. Some gardeners even cut off the flower stalks so they does not distract from the leaves. Both the old-fashioned bleeding heart Dicentra spectabilis and the repeat flowering fern-leafed varieties qualify as lower-maintenance plants. Dicentra spectabilis and its cultivars only bloom once in mid-spring, but it remains in flower for weeks. Its major drawback is that it cannot handle hot summers. When the temperatures climb, bleeding heart either fades to yellow or disappears completely. Dicentra exemia and D. formosa will repeat flower periodically throughout the summer, especially if you deadhead them. Their only flaw is that the old foliage can start to look faded as new growth comes in at the base. Bleeding heart should be divided every 4 to 5 years. The perennial plants commonly called hardy geraniums are not related to the common annual geraniums that decorate window boxes and cemetery planters throughout the world. Those plants are actually members of the Pelargonium species. The true geraniums, known variously as perennial geraniums, hard geraniums, or Cranesbill geraniums, are true perennials that make wonderful garden plants. There are many dozens of Cranesbill geranium cultivars available. One of the best is Roseanne, a blue variety that blooms non-stop throughout the summer. Common varieties range from 9 inches to about 2 feet in height. Cranesbill geraniums should be divided every 6 to 8 years. The term catmint is applied to several different species within the Nepeta genus, but while many of the species are rightly considered unruly weeds, those selected for garden cultivations are much more civilized. Some are sterile hybrids that have none of the rampant self-seeding habits of the species varieties. In particular, Walker's Low, Nepeta racemosa, Walker's Low, is an excellent, well-behaved garden plant. It grows to about 18 inches, with an attractive clumping growth habit. Catmint can be an excellent substitute for lavender, which does not grow well in much of the Northeast. Catmint may not have lavender's scent, but it makes a lovely cloud of blue, and it will repeat bloom if sheared back after blooming. The garden columbines comprise several different species within the Aquiligia genus, as well as dozens of cultivars, mostly based on A. vulgaris. The bicolored eastern red columbine, Aquiligia canadensis, is native to the northeast U.S. and is still prized as a wildflower. It has been joined by a series of colorful hybrids that fill the gap in the garden between early spring bloomers and peak season. Most will happily self-sow throughout the bed, and if you have more than one color, be prepared for some interesting offspring as the plants hybridize. Deadheading the plants will prevent them from self-seeding. Once established, columbine plants can be very drought-tolerant. Division is required only every 10 years or so. The very name, Russian sage, hints at how hardy this plant is in colder climates. It is actually considered a subshrub, a woody-stemmed plant that dies back to ground level each winter. In addition to its tolerance of cold, this is an excellent plant for dry, drought-like conditions. The only maintenance Russian sage requires is a hard pruning in the spring, when the buds are just beginning to break. It blooms on new growth, so cutting it back to 6 to 8 inches allows the whole plant to fill back in and burst into bright blue bloom in late summer. Russian sage can send out runners, which should be removed early before they get a chance to take hold. The plants should be divided every 4 to 6 years. Whole plants do not transplant well. Daylilies are ubiquitous in the Northeast. Thousands of cultivars, based on a few dozen common species, offer an abundance of choice that makes daylilies one of the most popular of all garden flowers. Daylilies tend to fill out quickly, which is a nice feature if you are just starting a garden. That means they require dividing every 4 to 5 years, but it's usually easy to find another gardener willing to take your excess. Although many of the older varieties are lovely, you will get more mileage out of newer repeat-blooming hybrids. Happy Returns is a classic cultivar known for repeat blooming. Daylily leaves can get ugly in mid-season, but shearing them back will create a flush of new foliage. Cutting back the flower stems will prompt quicker reblooms on the repeat-blooming varieties. The Peonia genus of plants includes 25 to 40 species of herbaceous plants and woody shrubs with compound leaves and very large flowers. Peonies love the chill of a northeastern winter, which provides the extended cold necessary to set the flower buds for the coming season. Unfortunately, the Northeast also has hot, humid summers which can cause gray mold, or botrytis, on the leaves. Be sure to place your plants where there is good air circulation, so the leaves do not remain wet for long periods. It is best to cut the plants back and dispose of them at the end of the season since spores can overwinter and reinfect the plants. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more interesting videos. And please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm.